The world is a beautiful but challenging place to live. And let's face it, life hits hard sometimes. So if you find your hopes and dreams and mental well-being needs a boost, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to Inspire Us with your host, J. Paul Nadeau, a former hostage negotiator turned motivational speaker and acclaimed author of Take Control of Your Life. And now, here's your host, J. Paul Nadeau.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inspire Us. I have a warning about today's show. The content of today's show is graphic, and it is not recommended for young audiences or for anyone who may be upset or triggered by descriptions of torture and terrorism. My guest was abducted by the secret police in Dubai following the London bombings in the early 2000s, and he was accused of being the mastermind terrorist behind those bombings. He was tortured and finally released. He suffered from post-traumatic stress for several years, but he was able to climb himself out of that state. How did he do that? Well, you're going to discover that very soon. It is with great pleasure that I introduce you to my friend, Alam Ghafoor. Hello, Alam, and welcome to Inspire Us.
Hi there, Paul. I'm very happy to be here. It's great to meet you. Thank you.
Well, it's great to see you again. And yes, we originally met on Clubhouse, and a lot of my listeners already know that I have found some real amazing people on Clubhouse, and you're one of them. Alam is a negotiations expert. And I remember he was running a room on negotiations, and I dropped in just to hear what was going on because I too, as you know, am a negotiator. And I was fascinated by the things that Alam was sharing. And he had a number of people who were also moderating with him who were sharing some gems. And Alam, through his grace, he allowed me to join in on the conversation and made me a moderator. And we've been in rooms since then and developed a friendship since then. And then I got to find out a little bit about Alam's past. And I've got to say, your story is one that fascinated me, and I want to share it with our listeners because it's not every day we meet someone who went through what you did and came out positive from that experience. And Alam, I know that my listeners are probably wondering, what's he talking about? What's he talking about? What's he going to talk about? Well, I'm going to turn it over to you, Alam, to share your extraordinary story with us.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. And look, it's an absolute honor being here, and it's an absolute honor having your friendship because I really appreciated the input that you contributed in the room. And like I said, you know, you're welcome every time, and we love to have you on the panel. And it's always great knowledge that you share. So thank you so much for that, Paul. So yeah, my story. Look, since I was in my teens, I've been negotiating. I grew up in a business environment. My father was an entrepreneur, business type. And, you know, when I was at secondary school here in the UK, I was wheeling and dealing, buying and selling stuff at school, right? But as life progressed into my 20s, that's when I actually became semi-professional in negotiating by chance. And that was, I got invited by a friend of mine who had finished university and graduated in law and had set up his first practice. So he invited me over and asked me to come and sit in on a meeting that he was going to happen, and on a meeting with an investment partner. And after the meeting, we were going to go for lunch. So I said, yeah, sure, you know, I don't mind, I'll hang around. And as I was stood in the office looking around, I saw the meeting room and the way it was set up. And it was set up in a very traditional way, table, chairs on one side, chairs on the other. And so my friend and his two partners went and sat on one side, and they had the other chairs positioned. And so the investor came in and he was talking to them, and they were going to lead him in there. So I went into the room and I positioned another chair next to where the investor would sit, but I actually shoved the chairs towards the end of the table, and I went around and shoved the other ones so that it wouldn't be so adversarial and confrontational. And I positioned my chair and the investors at 45 so that we would be kind of crossing paths. And so when the meeting happened, I went and sat in. And as the questions were coming and the conversation was going back and forth, some of the questions that my friend asked, I would then interrupt and reframe it and soften it and make it more pliable for the investor. And then when the meeting finished, everybody shook hands, said it was a great meeting. And the investor asked me, he said, "Oh, hey, Alan, what's your role in this company?" And I said, "Look, I don't do anything here. He's a good friend of mine." Funny enough, before you came in, or just as you came in, I saw the room set up and it wasn't very conducive. I said, "Look, I'm big on body language and understanding people and personality profiling and all this kind of stuff that I'm really into and that I use in my daily life. But I said, I just didn't like the setup and I wanted to make it comfortable for you, even though you're the money man." And he started laughing and he gave me his card. He said, "Look, I want you to call me. I have a lot of potential work for you. You know, it's great what you've done." And that's where I started. So I was about 22 or something, right? So that was my professional introduction to it. So then we fast forward to 2005. Now I'm flying all over the world, right? And I have been for a number of years. And I'm putting deals together for people. And we are doing real estate deals and commodity deals and buyers and suppliers deals and anything that sounds interesting to me, I will go off, learn about it, and then go off and present it and start putting it together. So I happen to be going out to the Middle East, to Dubai, for real estate project. We want to go and buy, because Dubai's booming at this time and the land values are soaring. So there's a British consortium that a friend of mine had put together, and he wanted us to go out and negotiate for this big plot of potential land that could have a condo hotel on it. And so this was my second or third visit out there, and it was July 2005. So I fly into Dubai and we go about our business. I go get a haircut and we're there for a few days, enjoying the life, meeting people, getting ready, having the meetings, etc., etc. And then one evening, I'm in a restaurant, a favorite restaurant of ours, with three of my friends. We're having a nice meal. There's a cabaret show on. And after a bit of to and froing with one of the guys who keeps coming in and going out, he said, "Look, I've had a really strange phone call. I'm not sure what it's all about. And somebody called me. I don't really know. Anyway, let's just enjoy our meal." The next thing was that 5 guys came into the restaurant, dressed normally, civilian clothing, came over to our table and actually started telling us, "Look, you need to come out to the lobby." So we walked out, went into the lobby of this hotel, and all of a sudden I have my pocket reached into, my phone is grabbed, my keys are grabbed, and I'm looking at this guy and I'm ready to throw a punch, and my friend's like shaking his head. And then I pay closer attention to the guy and I see like an earpiece, and I think, well, anyway, all of a sudden I'm pushed out of the door. I'm literally dragged outside and thrown in the back of a car, and my friend's brought with me. The guy jumps in, opens a glove compartment, pulls a gun out, and we got the thumb cuffs on as well. And we're driven off, and I'm like, whoa, 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 what's going on here? Look, there must be some mistake here. Well, what do you think you're doing? And they're like, be quiet, just shut your mouth. And we're driven off at high speed, and then all of a sudden the car stops. The guy jumps out, the driver jumps out, they go to the back of the car, and I'm thinking, we're about to get a bullet in the head here. And the boot opens, then they come back around, pull some hoods out, and the hood is up, get back in the car, and they drive off again. So now we go from the beautiful, smooth tarmac roads of Dubai onto this bumpy terrain, which I'm pretty certain is the desert. And it, and then the car stops, and I'm pulled out of the car. And at this point, I'm hyperventilating, and I'm thinking, I just can't comprehend what's going on. I get dragged into a building, and then I'm placed into a chair where my ankles are cuffed together, and the thumb cuff is taken off, and my hands are pulled behind me, and now I'm cuffed. I've still got the hood on, and I'm just sitting there in silence. I can't believe, that this is going on. The door flies open. There's several different voices in different languages, Urdu, Arabic, Pashto, whatever, English, all screaming and shouting at me. Then somebody punches me in the head and pulls the hood off. And then there's a guy screaming in my face. He says, "You better start talking, Adam. You better start talking. We know who you are. We know." And I'm stuttering like, look. I think, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Look, we know who you are. You're the terrorist mastermind behind the London bombings." Now, the London bombings had just taken place literally a week earlier or 10 days earlier. And unknown to me, on this evening, there'd been a second attempt by a second group who were either linked or emulating the first group. So now all of a sudden I'm accused of being the terrorist mastermind behind the London bombings, which has caused so many deaths, so many injuries, so much carnage. I just want to let that sink in for a second. My heart was pumping so violently, I thought it was going to break out of my chest. My throat was constricted, like, you know, I was being strangled, and my head felt like it was in a vice. And I couldn't believe it. It was so surreal. I thought maybe this is a nightmare or something. I'm dreaming this. But no, you know, it's like, look, you better start talking. We know who you are. And what's your name? I said, look, it's Alan Ghafoor. No, your real name. I said, look, my real name is Alan Ghafoor. And it's, no, tell us your other names. And I said, I don't have any other names. I'm Alan Ghafoor. I'm a British citizen. Why don't you call the British government and ask them who I am? You know? No, we don't need to call them. They've told us who you are. They told us to grab you. They told us to pick you up. And I said, well, you know, and I'm thinking, well, that can't be possible. Why would the government say that? You know, I don't do anything wrong. I haven't done anything wrong. I don't mix with the wrong people. I don't talk to the wrong people. And then I'm told, look, we've got photographic evidence of you in Afghanistan training, of setting up terror camps in the US, of being involved in arms and bomb making and all this other stuff, which I have never, ever come across in my life. And I said, look, there's no way. I've never been to Afghanistan. And I went to Pakistan, and that was in 1993, and I never visited it again. And I certainly haven't set up any training camps in the US. I've been over to the States. I have a house over there. And I've been to Disneyland, and that's about it. So, you know, so the guy says, listen, you know what? It's over for you, my friend. You've caused a lot of deaths. You better start talking. You better start giving us some answers. You're going to die here. You know, you're going to be thrown in a pit. We're going to let the dogs rip you apart. We're going to hang you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And we're going to leave you, and we're going to come back. You better have some answers. And then they all leave the room and leave me sitting there with my thoughts. And I'm just like, this is incredible, man. This can't be happening to me. Well, you know, I just can't comprehend it, Paul. I cannot, for the life of me, comprehend why on earth this would be happening. And then from there on, literally, I was interrogated around the clock, and normally in pairs. So 2 of them would come in at a time, and it would go on for probably hours. There was no clock in the room. I was in a room with no windows. There was just very bright lights. Sometimes the AC would be turned up when they left. Sometimes they would turn it right down. So either I would go to extreme heat or I'd go extreme cold. And then, and at this moment, I was chained all the time into the chair. So this went on for however long. And then I was taken from there, thrown in a cell for a while, and then dragged out, taken into another room. And again, it was started the same questions. What's your name? Tell us your real name. How did you do this? Why did you do this? What are the other things that you've planned? How many years have you been training? Where's your terror camps? Where's this? Where's that? None of it of any relation to me, because I can't answer it. All I ever said to them, look, you need to let me make a phone call. Let me speak to the British consulate, or you call the British consulate. We don't need to let you call anybody. You have disappeared. You're under our control. Nobody knows that you are here. I said, well, hang on. You told me that the British consulate or the British government know. The British government told us to get you. And so these guys, they would take it in turns to interrogate me around the clock. There was times when I'd be punched and abused and knocked around. There'd be times when I was actually taken over to this, I call it the shithole. And it was literally, I would crawl on my hands and knees into this space that had shit, piss and blood in there. And they would shut the door. It was pitch black and it was extreme heat, and I would be gagging in there. And the only thing that got me through that was, you know, from being a teenager and being afraid of the dentist drill, I taught myself self-hypnosis. And I tell you, you know, being in this horrible, enclosed, hot, smelly, disgusting place, I have to hypnotize myself to stop myself from retching and gagging and take my mind elsewhere. And you know, when I got pulled out of there was a few times that I was taken to showers, and they were turned on extreme on extreme hot, so that you know, it would burn me. There was a time when they gave me some clothing to wear that had some sort of powder in it that actually ruptured and blistered and burnt all of my skin from my neck down, right down to my ankles. And I mean, every part of my body was weeping and bleeding. It was horrible. And there was the constant abuse, the constant beatings, and all the rest around the clock. So somebody would tell me they wanted to throw me in a pit and let the dogs rip me apart. The other team told me I was going to get shot. The other team told me I would be hung. And then there was one particular team of these two guys, and this chap, he was a very cold, miserable man. And he said, look, you know, we can't let you die. You have to suffer. So I'm going to insist that you be put into solitary confinement, and only I have access to you with a doctor. And every day I will torture you, and you will beg me to kill you, beg me to end your life. But every time you pass out, the doctor will revive you so that I can carry on inflicting pain on you. And he says, I will be the only face you will ever see, and death will not come easy for you. And so, you know, the impact of this on your brain, as you can imagine, Paul, is horrendous. But I mean, this is the process that I went through. But let me go back a few steps to the point of being accused of this. And then on the odd moments when I was left to myself to ponder what was going on, my concern was for my family. It was for my young son who was 5 years old. And my fear was that, you know, how is this boy going to grow up knowing that his father has been labeled as a terrorist? Kids get bullied, you know, and what, you know, how much worse is it going to be for this kid, for my son, you know? So that was a big, that was eating away at me, Paul. That was really eating away at me. You know, how's he going to cope? I mean, my brothers and sisters, fair enough, they were older. They were in the 20s, late 20s, so they could move away. They could change their names, change their identities, and disassociate themselves from me. My poor mother would probably die of a heart attack because of these accusations. But it was really about my son, you know. That was a horrible thought to go through. But as this process went on and these guys exerted their authority on me, and I mean, look, it's their job to get to the truth. But, you know, when you know that you don't have anything to go on, then surely you should have a look at what you've been presented with. But I mean, that's another conversation. But look, you know, essentially I'm being bullied, I'm being beaten, I'm being mentally and physically tortured and interrogated and questioned all the time. So you know what, I made a decision, and it was pretty much early on that, you know what, if you're going to kill me, fair enough, you're going to kill me. And you know, the pain you're going to put me through, I'm okay with that, because I know the human body can take so much pain. But you know, I'm going to take so much pain and then I'm going to die. So you know, there's going to be a release, there's going to be a relief, and it's fine. Whatever pain happens, happens. And maybe, you know, this is God's way or the universe's way of, for whatever wrongs I've done, this is how my soul maybe is going to get cleansed or whatever, right? I'm trying to justify it in my head for the horribleness I'm about to experience. But one thing I was certain for, and that was I wasn't going to die begging on my knees to no man. You know, if I was going to die, I'll die on my terms. So where does my negotiation and all my experience of body language and personality profiling and micro expressions and, you know, everything that I've ever learned about human beings and interaction, where does it come into play? Well, this was it. So I started noticing little things when they would come in and interrogate me and question me. And when they would leave me, they said, well, get in the corner and stand there and put me in a stress position, kneel on the floor, stand, arms up, arms out, this and that. And then they would come in and check I don't know what the time frame was, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it was. They'd come in and check. And sometimes they'd bring me some water, or the odd times they'd bring me some food. Now, even the food wasn't like a regular times that I could have determined that it was breakfast or afternoon, lunch or evening.
Right.
It wasn't, right. I mean, sometimes, but I didn't want to eat anyway, right? So when the guard would come in and check, and then he'd bring me the food or the water, I started to ask him. I'd say, "Oh look, hey, where's your boss? Boss? What do you mean, boss? Oh, the other chap you come in with. He's not my boss. He's my colleague. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he was your boss, because he always comes in first, and you hold the door for him, and you never speak when he's here. Oh, I can say what I want. Oh, really? Oh, okay. You know, and so I started kind of creating this friction between them all the different guys. And so some of them I'd pick away. One in particular, I started picking at him, and I'd say, look, I don't see anybody showing you any respect. And I'm wondering to myself, is this because maybe your father got you the job? And he said, yeah, how do you know that? And it was again, you know, as you know, Paul, when we've been involved in this for so long, we kind of make presumptions based on what we see. And so, and again, knowing how nepotism exists in the Middle East is kind of a pretty safe calculation to make, you know, but to them, it's like, okay. So how do you know that? And I said, well, you know, I figured it, you know, that, hey, listen, they don't show you no respect. And so then this guy, he came in on his own one time, and he's questioning me for hours. And as he's going through that, I'd answer them. I'd ask him a question, and then that would open him up, and then I'd ask him another. And then it got into the point where I'd be asking him questions, and then all of a sudden he'd snap out of it and say, hey, you know, go stand over there. I'm the one asking the question. And you know, and I started, and it's crazy, Paul, right? Because look, I'm gonna die, so I don't give a damn. So I kind of started having fun with this, where sometimes when I was speaking with him, I'd say, hey, listen, you know what? And I was talking to this guy, and he looked at me and he said, oh, you're a real jackass, you know, you look like an idiot, you know, and then, you know, but obviously when I'm saying it for, and then he'd be listening, and hey, you just call me an idiot. You say I'm a jackass. And I said, no, I'm saying the guy, well, I'm telling you about in the story. And so as I was saying, you know, these kind of interactions were taking place. And then one time, one of them's asking me something, and he says, look, when you came here, you went to the barbers, you went for beautifying your face. And I says, I went for a haircut. And he says, yeah, but you had a style done on your face. And I said, what do you mean? He said, oh. I said, okay, yeah, I went for a shave, and I had the stubble trimmed down, and I had like 2 stripes put in, and this kind of shape created on my face. And he goes, yeah, that was your disguise, Mr. Alam. And I says, oh. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, you had 2 stripes going down your face, and Taliban means 2 students. Now, I didn't know what Taliban meant. I found out afterwards it means student. It doesn't mean 2 students. But at the time I said, yeah, you're right. I said, you're right. I said, how did you figure that out? Nobody else knows that. I said, you're very, very clever. I said, you're the smartest man in here. I said, look, all of them are desperate to break me. I said, but how about we do a deal? I said, why don't you be the one that breaks me? I'll give you information about what else is going to happen in the UK, and maybe you can get all the glory. Imagine that. They're going to have to promote you to the top, and all of these are going to have to look up to you. So I'm painting the picture to him. I can see him salivating, the pupils are widened and everything. I said, all you have to do is go and bring me a phone so I can call the British consulate. I said, look, if I explain it to you and you tell the British consulate in the wrong way, even if you mess one word up, and they convey this to the British authorities in the UK, I said, my people are going to be triggered, and they're going to know that this is going on, and it's going to be hell. So I said, I must convey the message myself. And I'm thinking, bring me the damn phone and let me tell the consulate, I'm trapped here. You need to get me the hell out of here. And so I've seen him salivate, and he runs off, and I'm waiting, and I'm in this room, and I'm thinking, okay. But I also had a suspicion that there was 2 cameras in this room as well that I'd seen embedded in these cabinets in the wall. And anyway, sometime later, the door opens, and this tall, broad gentleman comes in, and followed by this guy. And he says, oh, he tells me you want to talk. And I say, yeah, have you brought a phone? And he said, no, you can talk to me. I can call the consulate any minute I want on my phone. And I said, no, you're not going to understand what I'm telling you. It's very, very specific. You need to let me speak to them so that I can tell them exactly what's going on. And he says, no, 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 you must tell me. I said, well, I ain't going to tell you nothing then. I said, because I was talking to him, said I wasn't talking to you. I don't trust you. I trust him. So I said, you know, I want somebody to give me a phone. And I said, you're stood here. You can hear me tell them what I'm going to tell them. I said, then you do what you want with me. So that one kind of broke down. They went off. Next thing I know, I get dragged in for a polygraph test. And so I go into this room, right? I'm always hooded, Paul, when I'm transported around. I'm hooded, I'm chained, I'm shackled, dragged through. As they drag me around, they bash my head in the rails, they trip me up, you know, all the usual stuff. And then I go in this room and I'm placed in this chair, the hood's taken off, I'm still cuffed up. And I see all this set up with all these wires everywhere. And I think, shit, man, I'm about to get electrocuted now. And then I kind of paid closer attention. I thought, okay, you know, I'm not sure what's going to happen here. And a gentleman comes in, he says, look, I'm wiring you up. This is a polygraph test. I've been doing these for 20 years. So he wires me all up and starts doing this, goes through all the questions. When we finish, he slams the laptop shut and runs off out of the room. The other guy comes, hoods me, and takes me back off and throws me in one of the cells. And then I get dragged out of there later on, and this guy, he's there. He said, look, I've been doing polygraph tests for 20 years, and I've never met a bigger liar than you. And he says, we've let your friends go. We know you're the guilty one. We know you are the one who's actually caused all of this. So, I mean, look, this whole situation was so crazy. But all of these things that happened, I mean, I carried on doing the stuff that I was doing. There was a time when one of them came in and he gave me a glass of water. Normally they brought me the little plastic cups which had the foil seal on it, and this time was an open cup. So I looked at him and I smelt the water and I spilt it on my sleeve and I rubbed it and I smelt it and I said, so what is this? And the two of them had come in. They looked taken aback. And I said, what is this? You bring me water with sodium pentothal. So sodium pentothal is the truth drug that I remember from Meet the Fockers. Oh. And I say, you bring me water with sodium pentothal. I said, do you know how many people try and poison me? I said, take your water and get out of here. And they scamper off. And then as they, you know, and then some of the others, I was telling them, look, you know what? It doesn't matter that you've caught me, because here's the thing. You are fulfilling what I wanted to happen. I'm going to be a martyr. When people find out that you caught me and killed me, I said, I'm going to be a martyr, and 1,000 are going to rise up in my place. I said, but I'm going to go to heaven with the virgins, 72 virgins, right? I said, I'm going to be having this great big orgy. I said, but what's going to happen to you? I said, you know what's going to happen to you? My people are going to come and they're going to come to your house and they're going to take all your loved ones, your mother, your father, your wife, everybody. I said, have you ever peeled a potato? And he's looking puzzled. I said, well, they're going to start peeling the skin. There's 7 layers to the human skin. I said, eventually you'll see the capillaries and the veins. And I said, they'll keep peeling. I said, but they won't hurt you, my friend. They won't hurt you. And then you will look in the mirror and see me smiling at you from heaven with my virgins. I said, and you will beg for death. I said, maybe you'll be so weak. I said, you look weak. You'll probably take your own life. You probably won't be able to live with yourself. So I'm doing different tactics with different ones, knowing what their personalities are, Paul. Right? And then eventually it gets to the point where these guys say, look, I'm going to write a confession. I'll write this crazy confession out. I'm friends with Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden. I went on Hezbollah.com to learn how to make a bomb. I set this up, I set that up. And they said, well, how did you raise the money? And I said, look, I did a sponsored bike ride across the UK and I raised the money. And also I've been holding fates. And they go, oh, what is a fate? What is a fate? I said, look, you told the British government you have me, and that, you know, I've done a sponsored bike ride and I've been holding fates to raise the money. Now, for all the international visitors and listeners who don't know what a fate is a church bring and buy sale for cakes and for old stuff. So I said to this guy, I said, listen, it's a code word that the British government will understand. I'm not going to explain it to you. You tell them you have the terror, because I'm thinking there's a 1% chance that they may just actually communicate with them and tell them that we've got the guy and this is the information he's given us. And when they say that, they're going to say, listen, we don't know who you got, but this poor idiot needs to be let out of there. So I've just got that little glimmer of hope of getting out somehow, right?
Yes.
And so then anyway, I mean, eventually what happens is the consulate come, they turn up, this lady turns up, she comes into the room, she said, look, I'm from the British consulate. We've been trying to track you for the last few weeks. We didn't know where you were. You completely disappeared. They only told us and confirmed a couple of days ago that you're being held by them and that you've been accused of a crime. Here's a leaflet. Try and get yourself a good lawyer. That's all I can help with. And I said, hold on, hold on. I said, look, I'm a British citizen. I said, I've done stuff in the UK for MPs and for government related bodies and stuff. So I said, you've got to go find out. I said, I'm innocent of this. She goes, look, we can't interfere in foreign matters. So anyway, later on that day, and then another lady came from the consulate and she kind of explained it a little bit more. She said, look, we are trying to get you out of here. And anyway, later on that day, we were let out. And as they were letting us out, my friends came out one by one. And the guard he said to them, he said, listen, this guy is crazy, man. He's just saved your lives. He wouldn't break. He wouldn't, you know, this man, just get him out of our country. Just get yourselves out of our country. We want you out of here in 12 hours. So we came away, and then there was another whole drama that I go into in the book about the chases and the potential setup and the shooting they were trying to do. And man, it was incredible, Paul. But eventually we got out of there, and I flew back to the UK after so much drama. It didn't take me 12 hours. It actually took us 36 hours to get out of there. And again, right up until the last minute, I was convinced we were going to get pulled in again and either get shot or killed or you know, whatever. And eventually when I came back to the UK, over the next few weeks and months, it turned out that my name had been discussed right up at prime ministerial level. All the redacted documents I asked for came, and I'd been discussed at number 10 Downing Street. And under the Freedom of Information Act, it showed that there was a second party to witnessing and who was pulling the strings to what was going on. And it was incredible. I was diagnosed with PTSD. Oh, by the way, one of the guys, when they let him out of there, he looked like he had just aged so severely. He was a broken man, and he truly was a broken man, Paul. He's never recovered from it. He's never recovered from it. The other two, they took some time. They're okay. They get on with their lives. And it's very rare that when we meet that anybody wants to talk about it. I mean, I'm open about it because to me, writing and putting the experience down, the whole purpose of the book and the emphasis on the book is not about me going through the pain and the torture. I talk about the mental aspect of it, but in the book, I'm more concerned with breaking down how the interrogation was, the body language, the personality profiling. And for those who will read the book, they'll actually learn some things about my methodology and things that you and me both have learned over the years. And so the book is all about how to kind of cope in this situation, how I coped, and how to kind of come through the experience. But it took me a number of years after this, with wild oscillations of emotions and depression and everything else, and other things in my life that happened, like the death of a nephew 5 years old from leukemia, and my sister's stillborn baby, and then in late 2000s, my mother dying in my arms. They brought enormous grief to me, more so than I would have expected under normal circumstances. And when I kind of traced it all back, it was an accumulation of what had happened to me there. And look, the biggest thing was, for so many years, Paul, I was angry. I wanted answers. I couldn't get no answers because you can't sue a royal sovereign state. That's apparently the law. And so the advice from the Dubai authorities was that if I wanted to go back there and find my interrogators who claimed they were the secret police, I could go and do that and sue them individually. Good luck with that. So you know, I was angry, I was hurtful, and I wanted to hurt them back for what they did to me, for the hell they put my family through. and everything else. But like I said, it was a number of years of the cycles of this, the depression and the wild oscillations of emotions that I finally got a grip on this. And that was when I decided to forgive them. I thought, you know what, I'll forgive them. They acted on bad information. They don't want to own up to it. They don't want to accept their mistake. Fine. You know what? I don't need to live with that. And I don't need to live with this pain, this poison. Because, I think there's a Buddhist saying or whatever it is, revenge is like giving yourself poison because you hate your enemy or something like that, right?
Right, right.
And so it was, so when I made that realization, that's when things started clearing up for me. When I let go, when I forgave, myself. And you know what? When I look back on that situation, Paul, and I look upon it as a blessing, right? Which people are going to find hard to believe. But look, I didn't think I was going to make it out of there, and I did. And so, you know what? I am grateful every minute of my life for the sun, for the rain, for the snow, for the wind, for a smile from a stranger, from somebody being happy in a shop that I've gone into or a mall because I made them laugh. So for the smile of my beautiful wife and my child and everything else. So when you open yourself up and you just forgive and you let it go, because you know what, don't hold on to the pain and the anger and the frustration, because it doesn't serve you. When you let that go, man, marvelous things happen. And the world is a beautiful place, and there's beautiful people in it, people like yourself, who are kind and caring. And I mean, look, the craziest thing is, Paul, that after this I actually went on to do more security stuff, and I was involved with teams that were monitoring the Olympics, and I've been involved in other stuff and other government agencies.
Mm-hmm.
And because of my skills and because of what I can do. But look, I'm happy to be here, and I'm always happy to share my story. I thank you, Paul, for listening, and I thank your listeners and I hope they take something away from this, that look, no matter how bad things get, right, there's always hope. There's always that chance, right? Even if it's 1%, if you hold on to that, things can turn around. And I mean, there's so many coaches and people who talk about facing adversity, and fair enough, people do go through adversity and pain and things. But I mean, I am one of the few unique people to have actually experienced this, and then actually to go on and then negotiate for others' lives in Africa and Afghanistan and other places, as well as things being taken, planes and boats being seized, and all sorts of crazy, amazing stuff. So,
Alam, wow, what a remarkable story, number one. And number two, I thank you for sharing and in great detail what you went through, being accused of the London bombings, being in a restaurant, watching a cabaret show, surrounded by 5 strangers, and somebody's got an earpiece. Next thing you know, you're kidnapped and thrown into a vehicle. You're locked in a spot. You're brought to a secret location, and you undergo, like, and if anybody's seen the television show 24, one of my all-time favorites with Kiefer Sutherland and and Glenn Morshower, who I've got to know. It's just so intense what you went through. There's so many things I admire, from your story, is your resilience and the way in which you were able to find the courage to start playing the negotiation game, in which, the persuasion and getting into their minds and stuff like that, which I'm sure contributed to your being sane today, because you fought the good fight and you never gave up. And that's the big thing. There's so many takeaways from what you've said here today. And one of the things is that people are going through difficult times right now. But let's take a look at your story. So for all my listeners out there, when you're going through tough times and you feel like giving up, just think of Alam's story, where he could have given up at any time. He could have, easily been killed. He could have easily just confessed to everything and have been tortured even more. So yours is a story, a remarkable story of perseverance and just determination and smart thinking and negotiating. Thank you so much. The other lesson that I know that my listeners will get from this is the lesson and the all-time power of just forgiveness, letting something go before it consumes you to the point where there's no coming back. When we hold on to the things that have happened to us in the past and we're angry and we want to get back, we want to get revenge without letting it go. Just let it go and look what it's done for you. That has really contributed to the quality of your life. And you are a fine example, Alam, to people. Your book, Innocent Terrorist, it's a must read. It is an absolute must read. And Alam also does a number of different keynote talks on this topic and on several other topics. He is working to better this world and to help with his experiences. You, sir, are a kindred spirit because we've gone through some similar situations, you and I, and that's why we connected on such a profound level. So I'm going to turn it over to you for a few moments before we close. How can people get a hold of you? What's your website? And I'm going to put this into the show notes, but just in closing, can you tell people, what is your final message to our listeners? Not a final message, but your closing message, and how can people get a hold of you?
So look, I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share with the listeners a quote that is on my website. So you can go to my website to get hold of me, alamghafoor.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. For those of you who listen to Clubhouse, look me up. You'll find me in certain rooms. I run a negotiation room every Friday where we break down all elements of communication. You're welcome to come and listen. We'll get you up on stage. You can find me on Twitter. So I am everywhere, available. And please do reach out to me. I'm really privileged, Paul. Now my focus is on, look, I work with CEOs. I do a lot of business stuff, but also I do a lot of this resilience. And I've got a program coming out which is about resilience and leadership through and from adversity, which we're hoping to launch over the next few months and bring into very many corporate clients. And there's also another program that I'm launching, which is a young entrepreneur movement worldwide. And that's to encourage youngsters to get into entrepreneurialism and to become creative, because the world has changed. It's not one of jobs anymore. And so I want to give youngsters the encouragement and empower them to actually, learn how to use technology for their benefit and wheel and deal and create business for themselves, buying and selling, whatever else, so that they can, one, they will never feel down about not being able to get a job, that they'll know that they can always stand on their feet and hustle the good way. They don't have to go to drugs, they don't have to go to any bad route. They can hustle the good way and make a life for themselves. And also through this program, then there's a chance for the youngsters to learn how to speak and pitch, which will also inspire confidence in them. And then also there's other elements where I am going to be teaching the youngsters about some of the negotiation stuff, because they love it, and the body language and things like that. They're fascinated by it. And the problem is, in today's day and age with the phones, a lot of the youngsters are so consumed with just being on the phone. And I think communication is going to be a big thing going forward, because those who can communicate are going to be able to command, groups of people. And those who can't, if all you can do is text and talk through a phone or a laptop, then you're going to be struggling. If you can't read emotions in people and you can't sympathize and empathize properly and you can't ask the correct questions, then so these are all very, very important things. But look, there's a motto that I live my life by, and I just want to share that with you and the listeners. And it's a Latin quote, and it is "Nemo vir esci mundum non redat meliorum." What man is a man who does not make the world better?
I love that.
So all I want to do is, if I can make one life better, then, you know, my purpose on this world will have been fulfilled. If I can touch 100 lives, I've set myself a goal to try and touch thousands of lives, and I hope I get the chance to do that. But like I say, even if we can change one person's life, right, then you know what, we've done something. So I'll leave that with you, Paul.
Thank you. We leave the world a better place when we do that. Shukran, shukran, alam.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will see you on Clubhouse very soon.
Absolutely, Paul. Thank you so much. Take care.
You too.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another insightful episode. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and leave your comments. For more information, check out our website at www.inspireus.ca. Remember, it's not what happens to us that matters most. It's how we respond to what happens to us that does. Stay strong and resilient.